The bank's phone call came on a Tuesday morning while I was in the middle of a project review at work. I almost didn't answer. Unknown numbers were usually spam, but something made me pick up. "Is this Ethan Matthews?" a professional female voice asked. "Yes, this is Ethan." "Mr. Matthews, this is Sandra Chin from First National Bank. I'm calling regarding some unusual activity on your savings account ending in 4782. We need to verify a large withdrawal that was processed yesterday." My stomach dropped. I hadn't made any withdrawals. "What kind of withdrawal?" I asked, stepping out of the conference room. "A wire transfer of $48,000 to an account belonging to—" I heard papers rustling. "Richard Matthews." The transfer was initiated in person at our downtown branch. Richard Matthews was my father. My heart started pounding. $48,000 was almost everything in my savings account, money I'd spent 3 years carefully saving for a down payment on a house. Money I'd earned through overtime, side projects, and living frugally in a cramped apartment with 2 roommates. "I didn't authorize that transfer," I said, my voice shaking. "Can you tell me exactly what happened?" Sandra's voice became more serious. "Mr. Matthews, your father, I presume, came into the branch yesterday with identification and a withdrawal slip. He claimed to be you and needed to make an emergency transfer. Our teller, unfortunately, didn't follow proper verification procedures." "How could he pretend to be me?" I demanded. "We're different ages. He didn't claim to be you in person," Sandra explained. "He said he was your father handling an emergency on your behalf. He presented a notarized letter supposedly signed by you authorizing him to access the account." My mind raced. I'd never signed anything like that. That letter is fake. I never authorized my father or anyone else to access my account. "That's what we suspected when we reviewed the transaction this morning," Sandra said. "The signature on the letter doesn't match your signature on file. That's why I'm calling. This appears to be fraud." Fraud. The word hung in the air. My own father had committed fraud against me. "What happens now?" I asked. "We need you to come to the branch immediately to file a formal dispute. We'll need to open an investigation and likely involve the police. Can you come in today?" "I'll be there in an hour," I said. I walked back into the conference room in a daze. "Everything okay?" my supervisor asked. "Family emergency," I managed. "I need to leave." As I drove to the bank, my phone kept buzzing. My mother was calling. I ignored it. Then my father called. Then my mother again. They knew. They knew the bank had caught them. I pulled into the bank parking lot and sat in my car for a moment, trying to process what was happening. My parents had stolen nearly $50,000 from me. Not borrowed, stolen. They'd used forged documents and committed fraud. Inside the bank, Sandra Chin met me personally. She was a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a professional demeanor. "Mr. Matthews, thank you for coming so quickly. Let's go somewhere private to discuss this." We went to a small office where Sandra laid out the paperwork. The forged letter was surprisingly convincing. It had my name typed at the bottom with a signature that resembled mine if you didn't look too closely. The notary stamp looked official. "This is sophisticated," Sandra said. "Someone put effort into creating this documentation. Do you have any idea why your father would do this?" "No," I said honestly. "I haven't spoken to my parents in about 2 weeks. They didn't mention needing money." That was a lie. They'd mentioned it constantly. For the past 6 months, my parents had been dropping hints about being a little tight financially. They'd made comments about how lucky I was to have a good job and savings. They'd asked once if I could loan them $5,000 for unexpected expenses. I'd said no. I was saving for a house, and I'd learned long ago that loans to family rarely got repaid. "So you want to file a formal fraud complaint?" Sandra asked gently. "This is your father. Are you certain?" I thought about the $48,000. I thought about the 3 years of overtime shifts, the side projects I'd taken on weekends, the trips I hadn't taken, and the experiences I'd missed to save that money. I thought about the house I'd been planning to buy next year. "Yes," I said firmly. "I want to file a complaint." Sandra nodded and pulled out the necessary forms. As I filled them out, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from my mother. "Ethan, please call us. We can explain. Don't do anything rash." Too late. I was already doing it. After I'd completed all the paperwork, Sandra explained the next steps. The bank will reverse the transfer, but that could take several days. We'll need to contact the receiving bank and explain the situation. You'll need to file a police report for the fraud. And Mr. Matthews. She paused. This is a felony. Your father could face serious criminal charges. I understand, I said, though my hands were shaking. One more thing, Sandra said. The account the money was transferred to, your father's account, it was nearly empty before this transfer. Just $300. Whatever he needed this money for, it was urgent. That detail stuck with me as I left the bank. $300. My parents were essentially broke, and they'd stolen from me to fix it. But why not just ask? Why commit fraud? I drove straight to the police station and filed a report. The officer taking my statement looked sympathetic but professional. You understand this will likely result in charges against your father? Yes, I said. I understand. After leaving the police station, I finally called my parents back. My mother answered on the first ring. Ethan. Oh, thank God. We've been trying to reach you. I just filed a fraud complaint with the bank and a police report, I said, cutting her off. Why would you do that? Mom's voice shifted from relief to panic. Ethan, please, we can explain. Explain what? That Dad forged documents to steal my savings. It's not like that. We weren't stealing, we were borrowing. Did I say you could borrow it? I asked coldly. No, Mom admitted. But it's an emergency. Your brother. What about Caleb? I interrupted. My younger brother Caleb was 22, 2 years younger than me. He's in trouble, Mom said. Serious trouble. He owes money to some dangerous people. We had to pay them or something terrible would happen. I felt a headache forming. What kind of trouble? Gambling debts, Mom said quietly. Caleb got involved with some online betting sites, and then he tried to make back his losses at a casino. He owes $45,000 to some very bad people. They came to the house, Ethan. They threatened him. They threatened all of us. I closed my eyes. Of course it was Caleb. My brother had always been the problem child. Charming but irresponsible, always getting into situations that the family had to rescue him from. Why didn't you ask me? I demanded. Because you would have said no. Mom said, you said no when we asked for $5,000. You're always going on about your savings and your house fund. We knew you wouldn't help save your own brother. So you committed fraud instead? I asked, do you understand what you've done? Dad could go to jail for this. Don't be dramatic, Mom said. It's family money. No one's going to jail over family helping family. It's not family money. It's my money. I earned it. And yes, people do go to jail for fraud and forgery, even against family. There was silence on the line. Then Dad's voice came through. Mom must have put it on speaker. Son, please, Dad said. We were desperate. Those men gave us until Friday to pay, or they said they'd hurt Caleb. We couldn't let that happen. So you decided to hurt me instead, I said. It's not the same, Dad started. You stole from me. I shouted. You forged documents, you lied to the bank, you committed fraud. That's not borrowing. That's not helping family. That's a crime. We'll pay you back, Dad promised. Every penny. Just drop the complaint. Tell the bank it was a misunderstanding. How will you pay me back? I asked. You had $300 in your account. Where's the money going to come from? Silence. They had no answer because there was no answer. They'd stolen my money with no plan to repay it. The bank is already reversing the transfer, I said. Which means Caleb's debt won't be paid. Those dangerous people you're so worried about? They're still going to come after him. Mom gasped. You can't let that happen. He's your brother. He made his choices, I said coldly. And you made yours when you decided to steal from me instead of being honest. I hung up before they could respond. My hands were shaking, my chest tight. I drove to my apartment in a daze and found my roommates, Tyler and Josh, in the living room playing video games. "You look terrible," Tyler observed. "What happened?" I told them everything. About the bank call, the stolen money, Caleb's gambling debts, my parents' betrayal. "Dude, that's messed up," Josh said. "Are you really going to press charges against your dad?" "What choice do I have?" I asked. "If I don't, they face no consequences. They'll think they can do this again. And Caleb will never learn to handle his own problems if we keep rescuing him." "But it's your family," Tyler said carefully. "I know," I said. "And that makes it worse, not better. They should have respected me enough to tell me the truth." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Caleb, about the dangerous people my parents mentioned. I didn't know much about gambling debts, but I knew enough to understand that people who loaned money to desperate gamblers weren't usually understanding about late payments. Around 2 in the morning, my phone rang. It was Caleb. "Ethan, please," Caleb said without preamble. "I know what Mom and Dad did was wrong, but I'm begging you, don't take the money back. Those guys who I owe, they're not messing around. They showed me what they did to the last guy who didn't pay. Maybe you should have thought about that before you gambled away $45,000, I said. "I know. I screwed up. I know that. But please, I'll pay you back. I'll get a second job, a third job if I have to." "With what skills, Caleb?" I interrupted. "You barely finished community college. You've had 6 jobs in 3 years and quit or got fired from all of them. How are you going to pay back $45,000? "I don't know," Caleb shouted. "But I'll figure it out. Please, Ethan. I'm your brother. And you're all willing to sacrifice me to save yourself," I said. "That's what family means to you? Taking from the responsible one to bail out the irresponsible one." Caleb was crying now. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never wanted them to do this. I didn't even know they were going to until Dad told me this morning that the debt was paid. I asked where the money came from and he said not to worry about it." "Did you ask him not to take it from me?" I asked. "Did you suggest he give it back?" Caleb didn't answer. Of course he hadn't. He'd accepted the solution without questioning where the money came from. "That's what I thought," I said. "Ethan, please, the bank is reversing the transfer. Your debt isn't paid. You need to figure out what you're going to do about that, because it's not my problem." I hung up, but guilt gnawed at me. Caleb was irresponsible and immature, but he was still my brother. Did I really want to leave him to face dangerous people alone? The next morning, I called my best friend from college, Derek. He worked in finance and knew about debt, both legal and illegal. "If Caleb really owes money to loan sharks or bookies, he's in serious trouble," Derek said. "Those aren't people you negotiate with. But there are legal options. He could file for bankruptcy, talk to the police if he's being threatened." "He won't do any of that," I said. "It would require him to face consequences and admit he has a problem. He'll just expect the family to fix it like we always do." "Then maybe it's time to let him fail," Derek said gently. "I know that sounds harsh, but Ethan, you can't sacrifice your future for his mistakes." Where does it end? Where does it end? That question haunted me. If I gave in this time, would there be a next time? Would Caleb learn anything, or would he just know that when things got bad enough, the family would bail him out? That afternoon, Detective Morrison from the Fraud Division called me. "Mr. Matthews, I'm following up on your fraud report. I've reviewed the case and I need to inform you of what happens next. Given the evidence, the forged documents and the amount involved, the district attorney's office will likely file felony charges against Richard Matthews." "What does that mean for him?" asked my voice tight. "If convicted, he could face up to 3 years in prison and substantial fines. However, given that he has no prior record and this involved family, a plea deal is more likely. Probably probation, restitution, and community service. 3 years in prison. My father could go to prison because of me." "Mr. Matthews, I need to ask," Detective Morrison said. "Are you certain you want to pursue this? This is your father. The emotional toll of prosecuting family can be significant." "I'm certain," I said, though I wasn't sure I believed it. After we hung up, I sat in my car outside my office building, trying to convince myself I was doing the right thing. My phone buzzed. A text from my mom. The men came back. They gave Caleb until Friday or they break his legs. Please, Ethan. I'm begging you. Friday was 2 days away. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I blocked my mother's number. I couldn't keep having these conversations. I couldn't keep being guilted into solving problems I didn't create. But the message stuck in my head. Break his legs. Was that real, or was Mom being dramatic to manipulate me? I called Derek again. Is there any way to verify if Caleb actually owes money to dangerous people? Or if my parents are just exaggerating to make me feel guilty? You could ask to see proof, Derek suggested. Names, documentation of the debt, something concrete. If they're being honest, they should be able to provide that. That made sense. I unblocked Mom's number and texted, if you want me to believe this is real, I need proof. Names of who Caleb owes, documentation of the debt, something verifiable. Otherwise, I'm assuming this is manipulation. Mom responded within minutes with photos. Screenshots of online betting accounts showing massive losses. Photos of text messages from a number that wasn't saved in Caleb's phone, making increasingly threatening demands for payment. And a photo of what looked like a formal debt agreement, signed by Caleb, agreeing to pay $45,000 with interest. I showed everything to Derek over video call. This looks legitimate, Derek said grimly. These kinds of operations do exist. They're illegal, but they do exist. If Caleb really signed this agreement and can't pay, they will absolutely come after him. So what do I do? I asked. Legally? Caleb should go to the police. These people are engaging in illegal lending and extortion. But practically, Derek sighed. If Caleb goes to the police, these people might retaliate before the cops can do anything. It's a dangerous situation. I felt trapped. If I let my parents keep the money, I rewarded them for committing fraud. I lost my savings and my plans for the future. But if I took it back, Caleb faced serious physical harm. What about a compromise? Derek suggested. What if you paid off part of the debt, enough to buy Caleb time, but not all of it? Make him responsible for the rest. Make him get a job and pay it off himself. Why should I pay any of it? I asked. It's not my debt. It's not, Derek agreed. But sometimes we help family not because they deserve it, but because we can't live with the alternative. Just make sure whatever you decide, you're making the choice for you, not because they're pressuring you. That night, I drafted a text to my parents. I wrote and deleted it a dozen times before settling on, I will loan, not give loan, Caleb $20,000 to partially pay his debt. He will sign a legal promissory note agreeing to pay me back with interest over 5 years. He will get a job within 2 weeks and provide proof of employment. The remaining balance is his responsibility. These are my terms. Non-negotiable. I sent it before I could change my mind. Mom called immediately. Ethan, $20,000 isn't enough. Then he'll need to figure out how to get the other $25,000, I interrupted. Get a personal loan from a real bank. Sell his car. Get a second job. I don't care. But I'm not giving him everything. The men won't accept partial payment. Then Caleb needs to negotiate with them, I said. Or go to the police. Those are his options. I'm offering $20,000 and that's final. There was muffled conversation on the other end, Mom talking to Dad and Caleb. Then Dad came on the line. Ethan, thank you. This is generous. We accept your terms. I'm not finished, I said. You and Mom need to attend financial counseling. Both of you. I want proof that you're going every week for at least 6 months. And you need to write me a formal apology letter explaining what you did and why it was wrong. That's a bit much, Dad started. Those are my terms, I repeated. All of them. Or I take back the entire offer and let the fraud charges proceed. Silence. Then Dad said quietly, okay, we'll do it. And one more thing, I added. I need to know why you had no savings. You both work. Where has all your money been going? More silence. Finally, Mom spoke. We've been helping Caleb for years. Paying his rent when he couldn't. Covering his credit card bills. Bailing him out of smaller gambling debts. We spent everything trying to keep him afloat, And we didn't save anything for ourselves. So this has been happening for years? I asked. And you never told me? We didn't want to burden you, Mom said. You were doing so well building your career, saving money. We didn't want to pull you into Caleb's problems. But you were fine pulling me in by stealing from me, I said bitterly. That was different. We were desperate. Stop, I interrupted. Just stop making excuses. You made choices. Bad choices. And now we're all dealing with the consequences. I hung up and immediately called my lawyer. Well, my roommate Tyler's brother, who was a lawyer. I explained the situation and asked him to draft a promissory note for Caleb to sign. Make it ironclad, I said. I want legal recourse if he doesn't pay. Will do, Tyler's brother said. And Ethan? Document everything. Every conversation, every payment, every agreement. Cover your ass. Good advice. I started a folder on my computer documenting the entire situation. Bank statements, police reports, text message screenshots, everything. 2 days later, I met my family at a coffee shop to sign the papers. It was the first time I'd seen them face to face since the theft. Mom looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes. Dad couldn't meet my gaze. Caleb looked terrified, his usual cockiness completely gone. Here's the promissory note, I said, sliding papers across the table. $20,000, to be repaid over 5 years at 5% interest. Monthly payments of $374, starting 1 month from today. Caleb looked at the number and went pale. I can't afford that. Then get a job, I said coldly. Or 2 jobs. Or 3. Figure it out. Where am I supposed to find that kind of employment? I don't care. Fast food, retail, manual labor, whatever it takes. You created this problem. You solve it. Caleb looked at our parents for support, but they said nothing. For once, they weren't going to rescue him. What about the other $25,000 I owe? Caleb asked. That's your problem, I said. Go to a bank. Get the personal loan. Max out credit cards. Sell everything you own. Or, and this is radical, go to the police and report the illegal lending operation that's threatening you. I can't go to the police. Caleb said. These guys will kill me. Then you have motivation to figure out another solution, I said. I turned to my parents. Show me proof you've enrolled in financial counseling. Dad pulled out a printed confirmation email. They had an appointment scheduled for the following week. Good, I said. I want weekly updates that you're attending. And I want that apology letter within a week. Ethan, this is humiliating, Mom said. Not as humiliating as finding out your parents stole from you, I replied. Caleb signed the promissory note with shaking hands. I transferred $20,000 to his account, money that hurt to give up, money that set back my house plans by at least a year. This doesn't fix what you did, I told my parents. This doesn't make us okay. I'm doing this because I can't let Caleb get hurt, but that doesn't mean I forgive you. We understand, Dad said quietly. I left the coffee shop feeling hollow. I'd done the right thing, probably, but it didn't feel good. It felt like I'd been manipulated into giving up my money to solve someone else's problems. Over the next week, things got more complicated. The bank completed the reversal of the original fraudulent transfer, which meant my parents had to scramble to get the $20,000 to Caleb in time for his Friday deadline. The fraud investigation continued. Detective Morrison called to tell me the DA's office was moving forward with charges against my father, despite my cooperation with the family. The state presses charges in fraud cases, not individuals, Morrison explained. Even if you wanted to drop the complaint, the DA might proceed anyway based on the evidence. What does that mean for my dad? I asked. It means he'll likely be formally charged within the month. His lawyer will probably negotiate a plea deal. But there will be consequences. I felt sick. I'd set this in motion by filing the report, and now I couldn't stop it even if I wanted to. My father was going to have a criminal record because of me. The apology letter arrived via email on day 6. It was 3 pages long, typed and formal. Dear Ethan, we are writing to apologize for our actions and to take full responsibility for the harm we caused. What we did was wrong. We violated your trust, broke the law, and treated your hard-earned savings as if they were ours to take. We rationalized our actions by telling ourselves it was an emergency and that family helps family. But we were wrong. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't forge documents and commit fraud. Family asks for help and accepts the answer, even if it's no. We realize now that we've been enabling Caleb for years. Every time we bailed him out, we prevented him from facing real consequences and learning to be responsible. We thought we were protecting him, but we were actually hurting him and ourselves. We spent all our savings and retirement money trying to fix Caleb's problems, and when that wasn't enough, we took yours. We betrayed you, and we understand that our relationship may never be the same. We don't expect forgiveness. We just hope that someday you might understand that we acted out of fear and desperation, not malice. The letter continued with specific acknowledgments of what they'd done wrong and promises to do better. It ended with, "We are attending financial counseling as you requested. We're learning how to set boundaries with Caleb and how to manage our money better. We're also learning that love doesn't mean solving everyone's problems for them. We hope you can see that we're trying to change. We hope that eventually, we can rebuild your trust. But we understand that will take time and consistent action, not just words. With deep regret and love, Mom and Dad." I read the letter 3 times. It sounded sincere. But words were easy. Actions would be harder. A week later, Caleb called with news. "I got a job," he said. 2 jobs, actually. I'm working as a server at a restaurant during the day and doing overnight stocking at a warehouse. It's exhausting, but I can make the payments. "Good," I said, surprised. I also talked to the guys I owed money to. I explained I could only pay $20,000 now and that I'd need time for the rest. They weren't happy, but they agreed to give me a year to pay the other $25,000 as long as I make regular payments and don't miss any. "How much are the payments?" I asked. $800 a month, Caleb said. "Between that and your payment, I'm paying over $1,000 a month in debt. I'm going to be broke for years." "You gambled away $45,000, I said. "Years of being broke is getting off easy." "I know," Caleb said quietly. "I really screwed up. And I'm sorry I put you in this position. I'm sorry Mom and Dad stole from you because of me." This was new. Caleb was actually taking responsibility. "Are you going to gamble again?" I asked. "No," Caleb said. "I joined Gamblers Anonymous. I'm going to meetings 3 times a week. I'm finally admitting I have a problem." "Good," I said. "Because if you do this again, I won't help. No one will. You understand that?" "I understand," Caleb said. "I'm done, Ethan. I swear." I wanted to believe him. But I'd heard promises from Caleb before. Time would tell if this time was different. 3 weeks after the theft, Dad was formally charged with fraud and forgery. His lawyer negotiated a plea deal, 3 years of probation, 200 hours of community service, and full restitution to me, which was complicated since I'd already loaned the money to Caleb. Dad also had to attend financial counseling and submit to regular check-ins with a probation officer. He avoided jail time, but he now had a felony record. The day his plea deal was finalized, Dad called me. "I just wanted you to know it's done," he said. "I pled guilty. I have a criminal record now. I'll probably lose my job once they find out." "I'm sorry," I said and meant it. "Don't be," Dad said. "This is the consequence of what I did. I'm just grateful I'm not going to prison." We talked for a few minutes, awkward and stilted, but civil. It was the most normal conversation we'd had since the theft. "Are you okay though?" Dad asked. "Financially. I'm rebuilding," I said. "It'll take longer to save for a house now, but I'll get there." "I really am sorry, son," Dad said. "I know that doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know." "I know," I said. After we hung up, I felt something shift. I was still angry. I was still hurt. But I wasn't as consumed by it as I had been. Maybe time was beginning to heal things, or at least make them bearable. 2 months after the theft, I got an unexpected check in the mail. It was from my parents, for $500. The note attached said, "First payment toward making things right. We know this doesn't cover what we took, but we want to show we're serious about restitution." $500 wasn't much compared to $48,000, but it was something. It was an action, not just words. Over the next several months, a pattern developed. Mom and Dad sent me $500 every month. Caleb made his $374 payments on time, every time. My parents kept attending financial counseling and sent me their attendance records. Slowly, painfully, my family was keeping their promises. My relationship with them improved incrementally. We started having monthly family dinners, tense at first, but gradually more comfortable. We didn't talk about the theft unless necessary. We focused on rebuilding trust through consistent, positive interactions. 6 months after the theft, I went to one of Caleb's Gamblers Anonymous meetings with him. He'd asked me to come to support him, and I'd agreed. Hearing other people's stories of gambling addiction gave me perspective. Caleb wasn't just irresponsible. He had an actual addiction that required real work to overcome. I've been clean for 6 months, Caleb told the group. No gambling at all. It's been hard. I see ads everywhere. My old buddies still try to get me to go to the casino with them. But I'm staying strong. After the meeting, Caleb and I got coffee. Thank you for loaning me the money, Caleb said. And thank you for making me sign that promissory note. Having actual legal consequences hanging over my head keeps me motivated to stay clean and keep working. You're really doing it, I said. The jobs, the payments, the meetings. I'm proud of you. Caleb's eyes got wet. That means a lot. I know I don't deserve. You're earning it now, I interrupted. That's what matters. A year after the theft, I received a call from the bank. It was Sandra Chin again. Mr. Matthews, I wanted to give you a personal update. The teller who processed your father's fraudulent transaction has been terminated. We also implemented new verification procedures to prevent this from happening to anyone else. Your case helped us identify serious weaknesses in our security protocols. Thank you for reporting it. You're welcome, I said, surprised. I also wanted you to know that your savings account has grown substantially. You've been making regular deposits and your balance is now over $30,000. At this rate, you'll be ready for that house down payment in another year. $30,000. I'd lost $48,000 but had rebuilt to $30,000 in a year through disciplined saving and the payments from my parents and Caleb. It was progress. Thank you for the update, I said. And Sandra? Thank you for catching the fraud in the first place. If you hadn't called me, I might never have known what happened. That night, I calculated my finances. Between my regular savings, the monthly payments from my parents, and Caleb's payments, I'd have enough for a down payment in about 18 months. Not as soon as I'd originally planned, but still achievable. The theft had set me back, but it hadn't destroyed my dreams. It had just delayed them. 2 years after the theft, something remarkable happened. My dad got promoted at work. Despite his criminal record, which his employer knew about, he'd proven himself valuable enough that they'd promoted him to regional manager. With the promotion came a significant raise. We want to increase our restitution payments, Dad told me. We're going to send you $1,000 a month now instead of $500. We want to make this right faster. I was stunned. You don't have to do that. Yes, we do, Dad said firmly. This is important to us. We need to show you that we're serious about making amends. Around the same time, Caleb paid off his debt to the loan sharks. He called me in tears. It's done. I made my final payment. I'm free from them. That's incredible, Caleb, I said. How does it feel? Like I can breathe again, Caleb said. For the first time in 3 years, I'm not terrified that someone's going to hurt me. And I did it myself. I earned the money and paid it back. I've never felt this proud of anything. You should be proud, I said. You really turned your life around. I couldn't have done it without you giving me that initial $20,000, Caleb said. I'd probably be dead or crippled if you hadn't helped. But you also didn't just give me everything. You made me sign that contract, made me get jobs, made me be responsible. That's what saved me, not the money. The conversation made me realize something. My decision to help but not enable had been the right one. If I'd just given Caleb all $45,000, he wouldn't have learned anything. He'd have been back in debt within months. But by making him responsible for part of it, I'd forced him to develop skills and habits that actually addressed the underlying problem. 3 years after the theft, my parents finished paying me back. They'd sent me a total of $36,000 over those 3 years, not the full $48,000 I'd lost, but a substantial portion. On the day they made the final payment, they invited me to dinner at a nice restaurant. We wanted to mark this occasion, Mom said. We know we haven't fully repaid what we took, but we've given you everything we could. We'll keep paying until we've made full restitution, but it might take a few more years at a slower rate. You don't have to keep paying, I said. You've shown me that you're serious about making amends. You've attended every counseling session, sent every payment on time, and completely changed how you handle money. I forgive you. Mom started crying. Dad's eyes were wet too. You forgive us? Mom asked. After everything we did? I forgive you, I confirmed. It took a long time, and there were moments I didn't think I'd ever get there. But you've proven through your actions that you've changed. That's what matters. We talked for hours that night. My parents told me how financial counseling had transformed their understanding of money and boundaries. They'd learned to say no to Caleb when he asked for help with things he should handle himself. They'd rebuilt their own savings and were planning for retirement. We were so enmeshed with Caleb's problems that we lost ourselves, Dad explained. We thought being good parents meant solving everything for him. But we learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone face consequences. We also learned that we'd been living beyond our means for years, Mom added. Trying to keep up appearances, helping everyone, never saving. We were headed for disaster even before Caleb's gambling debts. That crisis just accelerated it. What changed? I asked. Losing you, Mom said simply. Or almost losing you. When you filed that police report and we realized you might cut us out of your life forever, it was a wake-up call. We had to choose, keep enabling Caleb and lose you, or change everything. We chose to change, Dad said. It was the hardest thing we've ever done, but it was necessary. 4 years after the theft, Caleb made his final payment to me. The promissory note was fulfilled. We met at the same coffee shop where he'd signed it. Paid in full, Caleb said, showing me his bank statement confirming the final transfer. 4 years of monthly payments. I did it. You did it, I agreed. How does it feel? Like I'm finally an adult, Caleb said. I'm 31 years old, and this is the first time I've ever fully paid back a debt on my own. That's pathetic, but it's also progress. Caleb had changed dramatically over 4 years. He'd kept both his jobs, gotten promoted at the restaurant to manager, and was taking night classes to finish his degree. He'd been clean from gambling for 4 years and was actually sponsoring new members in Gamblers Anonymous. I wanted to thank you, Caleb said. Not just for the loan, but for the tough love. If you'd just given me the money, I'd have learned nothing. But you made me work for it, made me face consequences, and that saved my life. I'm proud of you, I said and meant it. The Caleb I knew 4 years ago couldn't have done what you did. You've genuinely changed. I had to, Caleb said. I hit rock bottom. I had a criminal organization threatening to break my legs, my parents went to jail for me, my brother almost disowned me. There was nowhere left to fall. I either changed or I died. What are you going to do now that you're debt-free? I asked. Save money, Caleb said immediately. I'm going to build an emergency fund so I never have to borrow from anyone again. I'm going to finish my degree and get a better job. And I'm going to stay clean, one day at a time. 5 years after the theft, I bought my house. It had taken 2 years longer than originally planned, but I'd saved enough for a good down payment and had excellent credit. My family came to the housewarming party. Mom and Dad brought a beautiful plant for the garden. Caleb brought a handmade wooden sign for the front porch with my house number carved into it. I made it in a woodworking class I'm taking, Caleb explained. I wanted to give you something personal to celebrate. We stood in my backyard, the whole family together, and it felt almost normal. Not perfect, we'd never have that innocence back. But healthy, honest, real. I never thought we'd get here, Mom admitted. After what we did, I thought you'd hate us forever. I did hate you, I said honestly. For a while. But you earned back my trust through consistent actions over years. That's what made the difference. We know we can't undo what we did, Dad said. The theft will always be part of our family history. But I hope it's not the defining part. It's not, I said. The defining part is what came after. How we all grew and changed. How we rebuilt what was broken. That evening, after everyone left, I sat in my new living room and reflected on the past 5 years. My parents had stolen my savings. They'd committed fraud, betrayed my trust, and forced me into an impossible situation. But in the aftermath, something unexpected had happened. My family had been forced to confront unhealthy patterns we'd maintained for years. My parents had learned to set boundaries and manage money responsibly. Caleb had gotten sober from his gambling addiction and become a functional adult. I'd learned that forgiveness was possible, but it required real change, not just apologies. I'd also learned that sometimes the loving thing to do is let people face consequences. If I'd just given Caleb all $45,000 with no strings attached, he'd still be gambling. If I'd let my parents off the hook without requiring counseling and restitution, they'd still be enabling and broke. The tough choices I'd made, filing the police report, requiring the promissory note, demanding counseling, had felt cruel at the time. But they'd been necessary. They'd forced everyone to change. A week later, I got a letter from my parents. Inside was a check for $12,000. This is the final payment, the note said. We've now paid back the full $48,000 you lost, plus interest. We know money doesn't fix what we did, but we needed to make full restitution. We needed to prove that we keep our promises now. Thank you for giving us the chance to make this right. Thank you for not giving up on us, even when we deserved it. And thank you for teaching us what real family means. Not enabling, not rescuing, but holding each other accountable while supporting each other's growth. We love you, Mom and Dad. I deposited the check and looked at my savings account balance. I was actually ahead of where I'd been 5 years ago. Between the restitution payments, Caleb's loan repayment with interest, and my own disciplined saving, I'd not only recovered what was stolen but had grown my savings beyond that. The theft had set me back temporarily, but in the long run, it had made my family stronger and my own financial discipline better. I'd become more careful with my money, more protective of my boundaries, more aware of the difference between helping and enabling. 6 years after the theft, we had our first completely normal Christmas. No tension, no unspoken resentment, no awkwardness. We exchanged gifts, shared a meal, and laughed together like a regular family. At one point, Caleb pulled me aside. I've been sober from gambling for 6 years, he said. That's longer than I've been clean from anything in my life. And it's because of what happened 6 years ago. That crisis saved my life. You saved your life, I corrected. I just didn't enable you to destroy it. Same thing, Caleb said. You loved me enough to let me fail. That's the greatest gift anyone's ever given me. Later, I found myself talking with my parents in the kitchen while we cleaned up. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't filed that police report? I asked. All the time, Dad said. If you'd just let it go, we'd have kept enabling Caleb. We'd have continued our unhealthy patterns. We'd probably be broke and miserable, and Caleb would probably be dead or in serious legal trouble. Filing that report was the most loving thing you could have done, Mom added. Even though it felt like punishment at the time, it was actually love. The kind that demands better because it knows we're capable of better. I almost didn't do it, I admitted. I almost just let it go to keep the peace. Thank God you didn't, Dad said. Thank God you held us accountable. 7 years after the theft, Caleb got married. His fiancée, Amy, knew about his gambling addiction and his past. She'd met him at a Gamblers Anonymous meeting where she'd been supporting a friend. She knows the worst of me, Caleb told me before the wedding. And she loves me anyway. But she also knows I'm in recovery, that I'll always be an addict, that I have to work at sobriety every day. At the wedding, Caleb gave a speech thanking his family. When he got to me, his voice broke. My brother Ethan saved my life 7 years ago. Not by giving me money, though he did that too, but by refusing to enable me. He loved me enough to hold me accountable, even when it was hard, even when it cost him. I'm standing here today, sober and happy, because Ethan showed me what real love looks like. I wasn't sure I deserved that credit, but I accepted it. Maybe I had saved Caleb's life by not saving him from consequences. 10 years after the theft, I looked back on everything that had happened with perspective I couldn't have had at the time. The theft had been one of the worst experiences of my life. It had hurt me financially and emotionally. It had forced me to make impossible choices and had temporarily destroyed my relationship with my family. But it had also been a catalyst for positive change. My parents had transformed from enabling, financially irresponsible people into responsible adults with healthy boundaries. Caleb had gone from an addict on the edge of destruction to a sober, employed, married man with a future. And I'd learned lessons about money, family, boundaries, and forgiveness that had made me a stronger person. Sometimes I wondered what would have happened if the bank had never called me. If my parents had successfully stolen my money without getting caught. Would they have done it again? Would Caleb have ever gotten sober? Would our family have ever addressed its dysfunctional patterns? Probably not. The crisis had been necessary. The pain had been the price of growth. My parents had taken my savings to help the family, and they'd panicked when the bank called me because they knew they'd crossed a line they couldn't uncross. But that panic, that crisis, that moment of complete breakdown had forced us all to rebuild on healthier foundations. Was it worth it? I asked myself that question sometimes. Was the growth worth the pain? Was the stronger family worth the betrayal? I didn't know. Some days I thought yes, definitely. Other days I thought no, I'd rather have had the $48,000 and a simpler relationship with my family. But most days I just accepted it as reality. It happened. We dealt with it. We grew from it. That was enough. On the 10th anniversary of the theft, my family gathered at my house, the house I'd eventually bought, 2 years later than planned but mine nonetheless. We didn't mention the anniversary directly. We didn't need to. We all remembered. But instead of pain, the memory now carried something else. Proof that people can change. Proof that families can heal. Proof that holding each other accountable is an act of love. And proof that sometimes the worst things that happen to us become the catalysts for the best changes we make. My parents had taken my savings to help the family. In the end, it had helped the family, just not in the way any of us expected. It had helped by breaking us so we could rebuild stronger. It had helped by forcing truth and accountability. It had helped by teaching us all what family really means. Not protecting each other from consequences, but supporting each other through them. Not enabling destruction, but encouraging growth. Not taking from each other, but building each other up. 10 years later, that lesson was worth more than the money they'd stolen. Not instead of the money, I'd gotten that back, plus interest, plus growth. But in addition to it, they'd taken my savings, panicked when caught, and then spent a decade proving they'd learned from their mistake. That was the real story. Not the theft, but the transformation that followed. And that was a story worth telling.